Hello! Today we are taking a look at the ERCO Ercoupe 415C in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So I got this from Sim Market. Somebody actually tipped me off and said you need to go and have a look at this aeroplane because they'd flown the real one, and they said this version of it in the simulator was actually really accurate. So here we are, and I've gone and bought it, and we're going to have a fly of it. So if you look around it, it's really nicely modelled. Like really nicely modelled, you know, and obviously the shiny metalwork always looks good in Flight Simulator, but if we go and jump inside, it's a quirky looking little aeroplane, but I kind of love that about it. I like aeroplanes that are a little bit different and need a little bit of, you know, thought about how you fly them and where things are. You know, you can't just jump in and take off. There is a tablet with it, and it has some options. Unfortunately, the sun is shining on the tablet right now. So we've got gear fairings that we can show or hide. So if we go and jump outside, it has the option of these big old 1930s style fairings. You can have different coloured dashboards as well. So we'll put it back to blue. We can have static elements and a cover over the aeroplane. So you've got tie downs all of a sudden, and some chocks and covers over the aircraft, and you've got cockpit vibrations. So we're going to put them onto engine running and close the tablet. So let's go and get this airplane up and running. So let's have a quick look around before we get started. So if we remove the yokes so we can see what's here, we've got cylinder temperature, oil temperature, the RPM, cockpit light, an attitude indicator, turn coordinator, vertical speed, and I'm guessing this is oil pressure. You've got airspeed or indicated airspeed. You've got a compass, a gyro compass, but then you've also got up here a binnacle compass directly above it, which is quite interesting. Then you've got an altimeter and your fuel shut-off valve, a comm radio, transponder, and then obviously your light switches, power, and so on and so forth. So let's just make sure. So we're going to put the mixture in. We're going to try this out. There's the throttle, it works. Let's put the yoke back on and try things out. So the pedals work, stick moves. Let's go and have a look outside just to confirm all that is happening. Yep, that's all, looks really good. Okay. So how do we get this thing started? We go and turn the fuel on. We've put the mixture in already. We're going to turn the battery master switch on. We'll go and put the beacon light on, the nav lights. We'll turn the magnetos to start, and the starter light hopefully will light up. And obviously we need to hold that on a bit longer then. Yes, we did. So it's quite realistic then. So just flicking start wasn't enough. We had to give it a fair crack of it to get it up and running. So alternator on, radio's on. We'll put the landing lights on and the strobes. Turn the transponder on. We're not actually going to use the radio, but it's just good to see how everything works, I think. We'll put the other yoke back on now. Looks like the breakers don't work. This is the trim, so we'll have a play with that on the way around. So let's have a look at the moment. I'm not sure how it's trimmed out, but we'll soon find out, won't we? It doesn't have any flaps, so it predates, I think, the invention of flaps probably. So you've just got your basic stick and rudder controls. So let's come off the parking brake. Let's see what its turning circle is like. So I'm going to turn hard right. So it's got a very good turning circle. Look, it turned within its own length. It's only a tiny little aeroplane, you have to remember. It's very cool how it shakes. Very cool. Okay, so here's the runway. I don't think there's any wind today. We can see the windsock over there. Yeah, it's hanging down. So we're at Boonville in the US, where I've flown lots of test flights in the past. It's just a lovely little valley that's quite secluded. and you can easily get your bearings of where you are. Okay, so let's open the throttle to wide open, and we'll keep an eye on the indicated airspeed. Let's go and make sure that the altimeter is calibrated. I've just done that, and the compass as well. Be interesting to see if the compass drifts on the gyro compass. So we're going to get as much airspeed as we can before we attempt to rotate. So 70 knots, and ease back on the stick, and we're in the air. It's very nose heavy, so I'm trimming already to get it to climb out, but we're looking good. So we will turn over the flat of the valley, and I'm trimming the whole time with elevator trim. So you can see in terms of this trim lever, it's nearly all the way back. So if we scroll in on that, yeah, takeoff trim is all the way back, look. So it is nose heavy. And I guess this aircraft is famous for being unspinnable. And just thinking about it in terms of where that trim is, that would explain it, that it will go nose down if you give it half a chance. So centre of gravity is probably quite a long way forwards, which would prevent it from spinning. Okay, so we'll just let it climb gently as we travel along the pattern here, and we're up to about 1400 feet and climbing. If we scoot across the cockpit, we can see the airfield down there. We can see the ailerons waggling around. It's very cool, isn't it? So this is the ERCO Ercoupe 415C. Okay, so let's try a stall. So if we were to pull up, so watching the airspeed here, we're under power still, so I'm feeding in more and more backstick. You can see the yokes are being pulled further and further back. We're holding 40 knots, and we're still climbing, and we're now down to 30 knots. There is no stall warning klaxon or horn in this aircraft. I'm now on full backstick, and it's basically just hanging there on the propeller, gently climbing at about 30 knots. It's trying to fall over, but we can just, it's kind of mushing along. I think that's the word you would use. So if we have a look outside, we're just hanging on the propeller. Obviously, if we then cut the propeller, or cut the throttle I should say, it just goes nose down, because it would. So let's give it the elevators back, get some airspeed back up, do a descending turn. So where are we in terms of the airfield? We're a little bit high to look at doing an approach, so we'll have a go at a touch and go, then we'll come right round for a proper approach. But it's actually really, really nice to fly. And obviously visibility is fantastic. I love aeroplanes like this. I really do. That are a little bit more, you know, you're in control. You don't have to think too much about flying them. You can obviously concern yourself with what's going on around the aeroplane. So let's go and see what happens. The wind is, well, there is no wind today, so we could come in from either direction. So let's see what happens in terms of airspeed. If we dive for the floor and then level out, I just want to see how quickly it loses the airspeed. Remember, it's got that great big undercarriage hanging out of the bottom that's not that can't be raised, so it's always going to be there causing drag. So yeah, it loses that speed look quite dramatically. So let's come in gently. I've just opened the throttle enough to hold us just above 60 knots. So I'm going to pull the throttle, so we're now at idle. The animation of the propeller is really, really good. So I'm just holding it off the runway with the elevators, feeding in more and more backstick as we go. And there we go. So we've not got enough runway left to climb out again, so I'm going to roll to the end and then turn around. If we wait till this final part of the runway, there is a little bit of extra room, even though we've already ascertained that it's got a very good turning circle. The sounds are fantastic. Okay, so we'll take off in the opposite direction. Remember, there's no wind, so we can get away with this today. Just going to sit down on the pilot's seat properly. So yeah, 65 knots, you just give it a bit of backstick and it's quite happily jumps into the air. So let's do an approach from the other end of the airfield, shall we? We'll fly the circuit the other way. I'm really impressed with this. I think it's really lovely. I think doing a long journey with it might be quite onerous because it doesn't have an autopilot, but you can't have everything, can you? But it is very stable. You can trim it and just leave it in a straight line. Like I've done it. I've just let go of the controls, and it's quite happily flying along. Obviously, there's no wind today, so that's helping a lot. It would appear you can't really damage the engine either, because I've got the throttle at maximum and it's not even anywhere near. So in level flight, maximum revs aren't going to damage the engine. That would be a different story, I imagine, in a descent. Okay, so we're just getting some reference of where we are in relation to the runway. So let's try a bit of a side slip, see if we can keep our speed down. Yeah, it's very, very stable in the side slip as well, and that is keeping the speed down like to sort of 50 knots instead of 65. So we'll release the side slip. Whoa. That was interesting. It really will hang and hang and hang on the wing. Right. Should we go and park the plane up before we put it in a tree somewhere? Oh, there's somebody watching us. They're probably waiting for the video to appear on YouTube. We'll watch their takeoff as we taxi in, shall we? I keep being told off as well for parking my aeroplane around the wrong way. As far as I'm aware, well, it's difficult without doing pushback onto the spots here to put them in the right place. And obviously the simulator doesn't do it right either. Okay, that's as good as you're going to get from me. Let's watch their takeoff then. There they are. Nicely done. Right, I'm going to cut my engine and cut the mixture. And we'll have another play with some of the switches and see how this behaves. So we'll turn everything off in the aeroplane. And ignition to off. Everything else is pulled out and done. So, can we open the canopy? I hadn't actually looked at that. Is there a click spot somewhere? How do we open the canopy? There must be something somewhere. Unless it's a secret click spot or something, like a bolt or... Seems a bit odd. Because if you look at it from outside, it has got glass here. So how would that remove itself? It's got a rail here. I don't know. I'll have to have another look at it after reading the documentation properly. That's interesting though, isn't it? Unless they just haven't modelled it, which, you know, it could be the case that they haven't. Anyway, there we go. The ERCO Ercoupe 415C in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I actually really like it. I think it's similar kind of aeroplane to the or to several of the others that have come out that are of the similar era. I think Just Flight make one. There's a chrome aircraft, I've forgotten what it's called, that I've flown around as another 1930s vintage aircraft. But yeah, it might be 50s actually, but I really like it though. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there and I'll see you again soon. Okay, take care.